Thank you for watching the channel again, and today we're going to be talking about distribution blocks. Alright, so why do you need a distribution block? So I'm a little bit ashamed. If you were to look at my negative pole on my battery, I think I have a problem of a lot of like accessories or cables actually stacking up on my negative pole. So why is that? Well, I have a bunch of accessories on my bike. Just to mention a few, I have nitro solenoids that need power. My power commander, I have quick shifter, I have my camera, I have a bunch of things that I'm actually using, and that probably is the case for people who commute in like cold places, because maybe they want to have a place where they can connect their heated gear. If that's the case, you need to provide power to your accessories. So at some point you're gonna realize that you're actually getting to the limit of how many things you can actually add to your battery. In some cases, you're going to be using your fused box because you're going to be providing a fused connection to some of these accessories. But in some cases, the accessories actually connect to the harness of your bike, and sometimes you only need to provide a negative cable that comes in addition to the harness. So if that is the case, you'll realize soon enough that your negative side of the house has more cables than the positive side. So that is my case. If you take a look at my picture, my negative side is so freaking messy. So what I'm trying to do is provide something like this, which I'm going to show you in that video, so you can have a place where you can use a distribution block that you can connect to your battery, and then you can provide multiple places where you can add accessories without having to stack them all in your negative pole. So what are the benefits? Benefits are simple. If you're working on your bike a lot and you have to remove your negative battery just so you're safe and you're not frying any electronics, you only have to deal with one connection. Instead of myself right now, I have to remove all of them, and then I'm just fighting to get the 7 stack connections put in the same place. So today we're only going to be talking about this. In the future I might be doing something on the positive side, but it's not as important, or it's important but it's not as needed right now because of my situation on the positive side is not the same. So let's just get to it. So you already know, remove both seats like always, rear seat and front seat. Also remove the trim on the side just so you can get access to the cables in the frame. So the first step is going to be undoing the bolt on the negative pole so you're not frying any electronics. And also, of course, this is the place where I'm going to be removing all of these accessories that are getting the negative for the ground connection from, and I'm just going to be repositioning them. And as you can tell, I have, if I can count correctly, I probably have like maybe 4, 5, 6 connections added or stacking up on the negative pole. So it was very easy for me, and I find this place on the frame where I can actually put a bolt, an M5 bolt, and this place is very close to the battery, so there's not a whole lot of repositioning, and it's going to be very easy for me to grab those negative cables and actually put them in here. So at this point I'm testing and making sure that the threads are compatible, and they are. So now I'm bringing the actual block, and I'm just gonna give it a try and see if it actually fits. And if I can get it to stay in place, then this is gonna be the new destination for my negative block. I'm guessing you're wondering, man, Richard, why do you want to put that in there? I mean, because there's a lot of exposure to the elements and whatnot. So I mean, if you think about it, first of all, I live in Arizona where it doesn't rain a lot. Secondly, I did not want to put this distribution block right next to the battery because there's not a whole lot of space until I move to a different lithium ion battery. And then third, if you think about it, I mean, there's a lot of different negative or ground actually taken from the actual block, which is exposed, and when it rains or when you wash your bike, they're gonna get soaked with water. So at that point, I'm not really that concerned. At this point, I'm actually just I decided and ended up pulling all the cables that I was able to get to the distribution block. So so as of right now, I'm just bringing 3 out of the battery, and I'm going ahead and then just putting them in the actual position before I put together for the final and permanent connection the actual distribution block again. And this is just a quick view of how it looks from the back. So if you were to be looking from the rear of the bike to the front, this is how you will see it, picking at you between the actual fender or rear fender on top of the rear tire. Now that the distribution block is positioned in place, I'm just dealing with the final bolts and just tightening them up and ensuring that I have they're all tight and the cables are actually not chafing or in a place where when the bike is actually going up and down with the suspension, they're just gonna be touching any other areas. Alright, so this is how the pole looks like right now. Before I had like 6 different cables, and now I only have one because this one was too short to actually push down and take to the actual distribution block. So now, before I put the final cable that's gonna be establishing the connection between the negative pole and the block, I'm going to connect in this jumper cable, negative to the actual negative on the block. How now the block, I have this alligator clip tapping into it, and what I'm going to do is just to quickly test all the connections before I make this a permanent connection. Okay, I got power on the auto tune. I got power on the power commander, and I'm just checking everything else. I have power on the ignition module. I have power here. I have power on my camera, and I'm just gonna turn it on. I'm just gonna check the actual nitrous solenoids. Let me just take a look. I can hear one. Now let's just take a look at the other one. Both are working. Perfect. And let me just turn the bike on. I was actually testing the limiter 2, which is also another connection that I had made to the actual negative, which is actually being fed through the block. So that is good. That's great news. So now what I'm going to do is actually do the final connection, and the final connection is going to be a cable very similar to, I'll show you here, very similar to this one, to this gauge, just so I can have an equal amount of thickness going from the pole to the actually main one underneath here, which is right here. And that way I can just mimic kind of like the same cable and same setup that you had before. So now I'm just gonna bring that cable here from the pole, going straight through the frame, and that should be the end of the connection. Alright, so this is the cable we're using. I'm only using the negative today since I'm only installing that negative distribution block. This is both ends, which are very similar to the ones you have in your battery from OEM. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and find the best place to route the cable from the bottom to the top. So what I'm doing is actually just routing the cable through the subframe so that the actual cable comes through the back of the battery. Since the cable is about, I want to say maybe like 18 inches long, so I just want to make sure that I have it enough. I have it tense enough where I don't have a lot of slack in the cable, and most of the cables are actually going to leave inside of the subframe. So here I'm just making sure that it reaches the pole, and then that I still have a good place where a good measure, so I can put it on the actual block at the bottom. Okay, so now that I confirmed that I have enough length to meet both ends of the pole, I'm just gonna go ahead and start installing the bottom portion, which is I just have to undo the knot, put the cable, and then put the nut back, and then just tighten the nut just to ensure that cable is not gonna come loose. Okay, so now with the cable on the distribution block tightened, it's time for us to complete the connection by just adding the cable to the actual negative pole. At this point, I'm just using that tie wrap, which is plastic, just to keep the nut on the battery up so that I can remove the entire bolt without the nut actually falling. So now I keep it in place. I put the cable in. I'm putting it underneath it because it's actually wider. The hole is actually wider than the one that comes on the bike, and at this point I just installing my only connection. Now it looks pretty janky, but anyway, my only connection remaining on the negative pole, and I'm just gonna tighten the bolt down, and once I have enough pressure and everything is ready, this project is complete. So at this point, just put your both seats as well as the trim back and make sure that the cable is not interfering with anything, and then just a couple tie wraps just so you can keep it in place, and you are done. Alright, so that wasn't too bad. I mean, it's just a matter of finding a place, like a super nice place where you can put your block. Then now I don't have to deal with thinking about my seat is actually pressing on the cables, and maybe I'm just losing connectivity to some of my accessories, or even just having to deal with the fact that every time I have to disconnect my battery, I have to look for a place where I can just have to like remove all the different 7, 80 or 40 cables that I had in the negative, and I just have to deal with one. So I hope that you find this interesting. There's some options that you can use for that, like distribution blocks that will provide you with negative and positive at the same time, so you can add fused accessory, which is the best way to do it, just so you can prevent pulling a lot of power without being able to provide a fused connection to your battery, and you have a place where something goes wrong, there's a short, you can actually go and fry that fuse instead of frying the harness. So I hope you learned something today. If you like it, you have any recommendation for me, just go ahead and put them on the comments. And thank you for watching this video. Come back again because I have more stuff coming in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.